Welcome into our Inside Arkansas Live, the very first Inside Arkansas Live here as part of Inside Arkansas. I am John Neighbors, joined alongside Curtis Wilkerson and Andrew Ellis. Appreciate everybody listening in and watching in on this beautiful day here in the great state of Arkansas. So, fellas, I know it's been a weekend of a lot of great stuff that we've been able to talk a little fall camp. I know we've talked some basketball, done all that, but now we get back to the live streaming game and doing it each and every day right here on Inside Arkansas at noon. Feels good to be back in this regard, at least in this way.
Yeah, no doubt, man. It's a good time to do it. You know, I know we were thinking for a while about the dog days of summer and trying to just drum up content, but it kind of just serves itself up on a platter for us right now with fall camp, and everybody's excited about that. Basketball never sleeps in Arkansas. People are excited about that. There's just a lot going on. And the Olympics. Does anybody care about the Olympics? I do. I love it, man. Like, it's stuck on my TV, but I don't know if other people do or not.
I care about it. I think I care about it less than most people, but like I've been tapping in with some things here and there, and there's been some fun results that like the Noah Lyles stuff I thought was awesome. I thought that was an awesome performance, awesome race. But yeah, like you said, it's good to be back, and I'm glad that Curtis is channeling his inner Clark Kent today. He looks very Clark Kenny today.
This is it's the dude on the Olympics, you know, the pommel horse guy. Wears the glasses. He's got the cross vision thing going on. It's just out of respect for him and his medals. So there we go.
Well, I'm glad we'll talk Olympics later in the show, because I actually have something that I'm going to bring up that hopefully it actually works out perfectly that you're watching the Olympics, Curtis, because I'm not, and so we'll have some fun with that too. But we have a few things to get into from the Razorback side of things too, because again, fall camp is in full swing for the Razorbacks, and we'll try to get to some of your comments later in the show. And I know a lot of people are going to be getting into the chat and streaming and all that stuff. But either way, fall camp, I know you guys did Pot of That Nature over the weekend and talked about a few things, but I actually, for some reason, watched the entire special teams press conference with Scott Fountain.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know. I sit there and I watch it, and I'm like, special teams is always one of those things to where it's important, but you never really talk about it unless it's bad. You know, like, because if you have a good punter, no one's like, man, you know, I'm really good with punting, or I'd really like this. But if you have a bad punter, if it ends up being shanked, it comes up a lot more often. And same thing with the kicking game. But as weird as it is, like, you don't have Cam Little anymore. This is going to be the first year pretty much under Sam Pittman that you don't have Cam Little. I guess his first year he didn't, but still, it just felt like he's been a part of the program and pretty, not perfect, but pretty automatic for as far as kickers go and whatnot. And knowing how many games Arkansas had last year where it was one possession games and one possession losses mainly, and how important it is to have a kicker, I don't know. That's one of those things to where I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, or we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about it, but it is a little concerning to me because I have no idea if this team can make a kick or not at all.
They couldn't in the spring, at least when we were in the stadium watching them. So, you know, I know Scott Fountain said some things about how they evaluate those guys in 3 different ways. And so when they're just kind of out there on their own kicking, and when they're doing it, you know, on the practice field or whatever, in some drills, or maybe he's yelling at them, that those guys are pretty accurate. But when they got over to the stadium, they were, what do you say, about 50%. And that might be generous given some of the days that we watched out there. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it. If the goal is to start finishing those one possession games that they lost last year, you got to get 3 when you can. And it's something me and Andrew talked about the other day is, you know, Arkansas, as bad as they were, or as hard as they were to watch offensively last year, they were playing on a short field all year, because if you get to the 40-yard line, you feel pretty good about getting 3 out of Cam Little. That's not going to be the case this year. So I think we might be setting ourselves up a little bit for those, you know, 4th and what do I do? Do I send out the field goal unit, or do I go for it? Decisions from Sam Pittman. And those are always fun. So
and I quote, I didn't know what to do. But yeah, I mean, and it is also tough. I mean, when you're a team that's coming off a 4-8 season, all off season, we're sitting here talking about all the ways is Arkansas going to be better here, better there. And there's a lot of areas we think Arkansas is going to be better, but it's kind of tough that the one thing that last year's team really had was special teams. Arkansas is going to have no choice but to kind of take a little bit of a step back there, just because of how good their kickoff place kicking and punting units were last year. And with Isaiah Satania as a return guy, obviously he's back. And, you know, I would say that Scott Fountain, for as much, you know, criticism as we like to throw his way, has kind of earned the benefit of the doubt here over the last few years, especially with just how he's developed kickers. And so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it is kind of funny that the one area Arkansas was good in last year, they're probably going to take a step back there.
Well, I was even thinking just over the past 10, 15 years, Arkansas has actually been pretty fortunate to have good kickers overall. I mean, there were some guys that struggled, but even like Cole Headland, he got better, I guess, when he went to North Texas. It felt like that was maybe it. I think that was more of a Bielema issue because I felt like the kicking under Bielema was never good. But, you had Cam Little. Connor Limpert might be the guy that like was the best kicker at Arkansas, but no one will ever remember because he was on such crap teams. Like that dude was, what was it? I think it was the Ole Miss game in Bielema's last year where they iced him, tried to ice him 3 times to kick the game-winning field goal, and he nailed every single one of them. Like, and it was a pretty good distance.
Crap too, bro. He was letting him hear it too.
Yeah, that was that 1-7 Arkansas football team, man. That was
a Cole Kelly win, I believe. That was a Cole Kelly road SEC win.
Because wasn't that when he got then like the next day is when he got arrested because he was
that was a different LSU one game. That was the day they lost to LSU, and it was they played at like 11 a.m. and like that night he got arrested. But yeah, Davion Warren had a huge game in that Ole Miss game. I remember they had a big special teams day that day.
Now, you remember already more than me because I try to forget a lot of those years out of my memory. But still, it's like you had Connor Limpert, you had Zach Hawker, who was really good too. Kind of underrated there. But
Adam McCain, y'all remember Adam McCain, who I think he fell off a skateboard and broke his hip, and that was kind of what got him in the doghouse or something weird like that. But he was a good kicker for a second there. Yeah,
so Arkansas's had some pretty good kickers, and it's just something where, if you're going to be a team that's going to win games in the SEC this year, like let's be honest, if Arkansas is going to actually win games in the SEC, multiple games in the SEC, they're not going to win by 2 possessions. Like it's just not going to happen. There's probably if Arkansas won 3 SEC games this year, I'd bet a lot of money that at least 2 of those games were 1 possession games. And so it's like that those kicks, those field goals, like, are you going to make every 50-yarder? No, but you got to be able to count on somebody. And if you're in the SEC, you have to have a guy that can hit 40-yard field goals pretty consistently, no matter where it is on the field.
And it is worth noting. I mean, we're concerned about it based on what we saw in the spring, and then the fact that they went out in the offseason and went into the portal and got another kicker. That's usually pretty indicative of, okay, we identified a weakness and something we got to shore up here. So they weren't super confident in what they had. But I mean, they've got some guys with track record though. Vito's not one of them. And if we're talking about field goal kicking, I mean, he was the touchback guru when he was at Arkansas, goes to Wisconsin, and he wanted to kind of, try his hand or his foot, I guess, at being a field goal kicker. That didn't go really well for him. So I don't know, like what the real expectations there from that standpoint were for him. But Matthew Shipley, Ramsey, both of those guys, if you look at their previous stops, I mean, they have pretty good careers, especially good, last season's guys who have had multiple field goals that they've nailed over 50 yards and pretty accurate too. So it's different in the SEC. It's different when you have a change of environment and you're in those big stadiums and different atmospheres, whatever. But I don't know. I think there's a balance to be had between, it's a concern because of what we saw in the spring, but I don't know, like it doesn't seem like these guys are bums to me. They at least have a little bit of a history and a track record. So, is it going to translate? We'll see.
Yeah. I will say I'm buying the Devin Bale stock a little bit this offseason. One, he looked good in the spring. Like it was kind of one of those things where we didn't talk about it a ton because we're not nerds. We don't talk about punters that much. But we were all kind of noticing, like they would do the punting sections and it would be like 10 minutes of just straight punting. And Bale was kind of the guy who had the upper hand in that competition. I even then, I don't think we expected it to play out the way it did, but I don't think this is a situation where Max Fletcher transfers and Arkansas is scrambling. Oh crap, who are we going to throw in there? I think Scott Fountain had a tough decision on his hands and Max Fletcher took it out of his hands. And so I think he's pleased, but I think Arkansas feels good about their punting situation as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where you just really don't think about it. Cause even back, if you think about a great special teams unit, the only one that ever comes in my mind at all was like 2011, because where you had Zach Hawker, Dylan Breeding being the punter, and you had Joe Adams at punt return and Dennis Johnson on kickoff return. But every time you're going to have something that's not perfect. Yeah, that's right. John L. Smith, the greatest special teams coach of all time, coaching them up. But that kind of leads into the whole point, kind of the title of this is like everyone gives their biggest concerns and whatnot. But my thing is like I look at fall camp and this is going to be, I don't know, the 10th or whatever fall camp that I've checked out and experienced and everything. But it's like, has anything ever been proven in fall camp? Has a question ever been answered as far as, besides, who's starting or who's in the depth chart, but is there ever a time that you guys can remember where something in fall camp happened or you experienced and you're like, okay, no, I can check that off the list. That's one of my questions that needed to be answered.
It almost depends on what kind of person you are, like what your personality is. Are you a glass half full or glass half empty guy? Because I mean, I think back to last year at this time and we were thinking, man, like, is this the best defensive line Arkansas has ever had? And they were okay. They weren't bad, but it turned out the offensive line just really stunk. And so when you're competing against each other, it's kind of hard to, determine if one group is kind of a weak link or if one is just really, really strong. Sometimes it's a little more obvious than others, but that's just one example there. But I don't know, man. If I'm thinking back over the last few years here, nothing really stands out to me where it came out of fall camp, some big storyline there. And it turned out to be something that kind of went through the whole year. I don't know.
I think with position groups, it's really hard. And I would say the answers are really low on that in terms of times where you could actually find stuff out during fall camp or spring practice for that matter. Just because, again, you're going against your own team, you're hearing all these things. And, I think over the years, we've gotten pretty good at deciphering coach speak a little bit. Yeah. You can usually tell there's a little bit of a difference. Like when every single player on the team is bringing up a guy, like for example, last offseason, every time we would talk to any player on any position group and we'd be like, hey, who are some of the newcomers that are standing out? Andrew Armstrong's name was a name we heard consistently. There was a very high possibility Andrew Armstrong. We figured by that point, okay, this kid might be at least serviceable. Like there's no way everybody would just be saying this if he stunk. I think back to like when Traylon Burks first got on campus. That was one of the first years that I was covering the team. And just you kept hearing his name so much. And so you're like, okay, something has to be happening here. Not that those are always the case, but when you're watching these press conferences or listening to these coaches talk, there's a little bit of a difference sometimes when they bring someone up unprompted rather than when Tom Murphy goes, hey, what do you think about this redshirt junior who's been here for 4 years and never done anything? Of course, the coach is going to be like, yeah, good player. Love him. Yeah, great. Yeah, oh, yeah, he's awesome. Oh, yeah, he's making strides. It's a little bit different when those situations happen rather than when multiple players on the team are telling you, hey, yo, this Isaiah Satania kid, he's killing everyone at practice. Like you can kind of tell the difference. And I think that's what this time of year is all about, finding out the real scoops, and when I say scoops, I mean just you can kind of tell the vibes, at least what this team feels, and the team is not always right, but it's a little bit different than whenever the coaches are just being asked about every single player.
Yeah, because every coach is going to give, like you said, I'm still waiting. Was it Steve Spurrier had some fun with that once of just like saying like, oh yeah, this player sucked. He's not any good. We don't even know why we recruited him and all of that. And then, I just want some coach to ever be asked about a player that's in fall camp and just be like, yeah, I don't even know if he's going to play. Like, I just be honest. Like, he's not there where he needs to be. But it's never going to happen. That's never going to be the case. And it's just funny how that is. But it's like fall camp is about, to me, more than anything, just where the depth chart is. I think that's just kind of what you get from it, probably more so, is like, okay, where are these battles at and who's getting the most reps, who's running with the ones the most, who's looking the best right now? Because I know people always have brought it up, but there's really not even that many position battles going on with Arkansas right now. It seems like it's pretty set in stone. Like, I was just going through in my mind offensively. The offensive line's set. Like it's set. The wide receiver group is set. The quarterback is set. The running back is set. Like everything's set. And it's almost, I don't want to call it boring, but it's almost just like, okay, well, if you know what you got and you know who's doing what, but there's no battles, there's no intrigue in the way of trying to figure out, okay, well, how, is this guy better? Is this guy better? There's no like 5-star freshman. It's like, ooh, is he going to play this year? How much run is he going to get? It's just usually that's what fall camp is to me about, just depth chart, battles, and newcomers that could be starters right away. But with the transfer portal these days, it's like most of these transfer portal guys are either starting or contributing in some capacity.
Yeah, I feel like on offense, you got to be a real sicko to get excited about that kind of stuff right now. Because you're right. I mean, most of that feels like it's pretty much decided. What's the depth? Like, who are the next guys up on the offensive line? Because they're going to get banged up. They've been a little bit banged up so far in camp, and having to mix some guys in and out. So who is going to be the one who steps up? And Pittman was talking about creating creating some kind of battle for Tykeus Crawford. We hear that every year. But is he that sixth man? Is it, a Marion Harris who we hear about a bunch? Is it Joe Moore, the transfer? One or more of those guys are going to have to step up and provide some reps at some point here. So, yeah, that stuff matters. But you're right. I mean, I think the exciting part about that will be once the games come around, not in a sense of, it's competition now, but I'll be interested to see like how the reps are split at running back, between Jaquindon Jackson, Rashad Dubinion. Like, what do those carries look like? What do the targets look like? I mean, with Andrew Armstrong, Luke Hasback, Tyrone Broden seems like a dude who's just really, really emerging and kind of set for a breakout season. How is Taylor Green going to be able to spread out the wealth there a little bit? So, I mean, in terms of position battles and stuff on offense, I don't guess there really is any. The third receiver, maybe.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the receivers, because I think that if it's not a battle there's like a group of about 7 dudes that Arkansas feels pretty good at, played a little bit.
Yeah.
And you can kind of argue amongst those guys, but I think Andrew Armstrong is obviously your wide receiver one. He's your go-to guy. He's going to be featured heavily in the offense. Obviously, Luke Has and Ty Washington are going to play a lot at tight end. Those are guys you expect to see a lot. But then after that, I mean, based on this offseason, it seems like Tyrone Broden might be that number 2 receiver who's going to start on the outside next to Armstrong, which, I mean, he's kind of leapfrogged Isaac Slaw in that regard. Isaiah Satania, I think, is a guy that he's like the new TJ Hammonds a little bit, where we just can't get enough of talking about him and, we need packages with him. And honestly, I feel like it's valid at this point. I mean, I think this guy, we've clearly seen what he can do on special teams. We've seen little flashes on offense, but I've always felt like this coaching staff didn't give him enough respect for how good he is as a route runner and a receiver. You think of a guy who's good on special teams that you want to work in on offense. You think he's just going to be some flash in the pan. You got to do these weird jet sweeps. We watch those one-on-one periods in practice all the time, and he cooks those defensive backs as consistently as anyone. Like, I think he's a legitimate receiver, and so I'd really like to see that emerge. But I think after a couple of weeks in fall camp, I don't think that's going to be too much of a question. I think the receivers, the cream's starting to rise to the top a little bit. But y'all mentioned depth, and I think that's kind of the big question mark I have with this team, because you look around at each position group, there's guys you feel good about there, especially in the top group. It gets real thin real quick. And so I guess that's what this time of year is all about, is like, is this team actually building that quality depth? What happens if you have a few injuries here and there? I wish the injury guys would just give us a little bit of a heads up and be like, hey, Arkansas is going to lose. It's starting outside linebacker, a starting corner, a left guard, and a tight end. So can they, then we can at least kind of prepare and be like, all right, now we need to see what we need to look for. But you just never know throughout a season. You got 100 guys on the roster, so many practices, so many games. It's just, you never know what you're going to need. And so who knows if Arkansas is equipped to deal with the issues that are going to arise, because we don't know what's going to arise.
Well, and going back to your point of the wide receivers, this is something I found pretty fascinating, because, now that Bobby Petrino's the OC, and, there's constantly going to be references to what he did 10, 15 years ago at Arkansas and so on. Here's what's fascinating to me, and it'll be fine. So I'm not trying to say it's an alarming thing, but you mentioned the wide receivers Arkansas has. I mean, they have probably the tallest wide receiver room in the SEC. Like, maybe I haven't gone through each and one of them, but I'd be hard pressed to think that they have more. Like, cause you got 6'7" Tyrone Broden, which is what he listed at, but still, like, at least 6'5", 6'6". Andrew Armstrong's in that 6'4", 6'5" range. I think Isaac Tesla is listed at 6'3", 6'4". Satania's, I think, 6'1", but still you have some size there. But if you think back to Bobby Petrino's offense when he was at Arkansas and those wide receivers that he had, other than Greg Childs, the rest of the wide receivers were pretty small. I mean, Joe Adams was about 6 foot, Jarius Wright about 5'11", 6 foot. Even Kobe Hamilton about 6'1", 6'2", I think is what he actually got officially listed at in the NFL. So not that is a thing that matters, but I am going to be curious what's that going to look like? Because the only Bobby Petrino offense that I've really watched is ones with really fast, get the ball in their hand type wide receivers and let them make a play. But when you have this much size across the wide receiver room, how is that going to look when it comes to you just get the ball in their hands and let them make plays? Do you go over the top more? Do you have them just go for those 50-50 balls and battle it out? Like, what is that part going to look like with the Bobby Petrino offense?
Well, I mean, when you got guys like Armstrong and Broden, who are your 2 tallest receivers that are also 2 of your fastest guys on the team, you can do a little bit of everything, I guess. I mean, it's what it seems like to me. It's crazy. I keep going back and listening to Ben Souders I love that, man, because it's kind of crazy that we only get those guys once a year. But I love it when he comes in there and he's talking about who's, benching what, who's squatting what, who's running this fast. I don't know. I love those numbers like that. But, I mean, yeah, when you see a 6'7" guy that's running 22 miles per hour, if you're Bobby Petrino, I mean, you probably got an entire playbook just for him, so I think it's going to be, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with that, but I just think it gives him a lot more flexibility in terms of his play calls and his options and what they want to do. And so, if you give Bobby Petrino more to work with, that's probably a pretty good omen of what the offense is capable of doing. I think we all agree, even though it's weird because they were so bad last year and it's just a lot of the same guys, feel pretty good about the offense. I think they're going to be pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, the weapons are there. I mean, Tyrone Broden, we mentioned him a few times here now, running 22 miles an hour. He feels like the guy of the offseason where, like, you could see the light bulb go off a little bit. Because I think we all watched him last year. We all were, excited about what he might could bring to the table. We saw his numbers. I mean, he started his career at Georgia. Or where did he was a MAC school. Was it Toledo?
Toledo, yeah.
Toledo, and he had a huge year there the year before. You're kind of thinking, okay, yeah, this guy, might could do something. And then we felt like he was underachieving. Seems like this offseason he's taking that next step. And I'm hoping that he takes Xavier Sorey to his school of light bulb going off in the offseason, because I feel like that's one Arkansas needs.
Yeah, I like the players from Georgia that come into Arkansas, and because they usually are better than most of the players that Arkansas could get normally, even if they didn't play as much at Georgia. But yeah, it's like any type of connections you can have there can always be.
Love them too.
yeah, that's always can be beneficial there. But that's the thing is, like, we look at the defense and knock on wood, it's always about staying healthy too in fall camp, and I think that's you mentioned the depth. I know that a lot of people have been playing like the EA Sports, like college football game and everything, and going through that, which I know we're going to have some fun with that at some point in time during the season. But it's just funny to see that in, like, say if, like, I've been playing it and a guy gets tired on that game, there's a major drop off whoever comes in next. Like it is pretty insane. Like how it's just like, oh wow, okay, you went from having a guy that was like 83 overall to a guy that's 72. And I know it's a video game, but that's kind of how it feels like with Arkansas football right now. Is they got players in the ways of numbers, like they have the numbers, but man, if any sort of injury happens, and it really doesn't matter to what position, if you don't have a healthy Luke Has, which I love Ty Washington, but you got to have more than that. If you don't have a healthy Jaquindon Jackson in the running back, I love the Rashad Dominion, but still, it's just that's the scary thing. And almost like I wonder if Pittman and the team and the staff knows that, and maybe are with fall camp kind of going around that, just being all right. We'll make sure we're practicing, but let's also, like, we can't afford to get these guys hurt, so let's try to tone it down a little bit. I don't know, but they don't have much depth anywhere.
Yeah, that's been the case with Arkansas teams, pretty good Arkansas teams at times in the past. There have been years where your first 22 you could line up and compete pretty well with a lot of teams in the SEC, but it requires a two deep and more than that. I mean, that's a fact. So, yeah, I agree, man. I mean, I think especially at linebacker, coming out of the spring, you had two guys there in Brad Spence and Sorey, although both of them are unproven, but you feel pretty good about them being contributors. They have to be. They went out and got some guys, and they're going to need some of those guys to hit. I mean, they just are. So whether it's Larry Worth or Switzer or the Dix kid from Maryland and Marshall, wherever he was from. Yeah, Maryland and Marshall, I guess. They need at least two of those guys to hit, man. You got to have people who can rotate in and out of there. If you're really expecting, two linebackers to take every snap for the entire course of the season, you're probably setting yourself up for a little bit of a disappointment there. Defensive line, Andrew, I know you've been all over this. You feel pretty good about that front group. But then the depth after that, you're not so sure. But it's just, it creates opportunities for guys to kind of step up, and maybe some guys who flashed at times last year, like a Nico Davier. Maybe he's ready to take that next step. I don't know. People think maybe it's Eric Gregory's time in his 10th year on campus to really step up. And maybe that's true. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Well, we're talking about like things that you can kind of figure out in fall camp. I think the one thing that one position group, if there was a battle or stuff to be, some stakes here this fall camp, the secondary for Arkansas, and we got to hear from secondary coach Darren Wilson today in the press conference. And I think that's one area that they've improved is they just have numbers there in the secondary. Whereas like with the defensive line, you probably feel better about that front group than maybe you do your starting corners and safeties there in the back end. But there's just like 10, 12 options. I mean, you've got your older guys like your Hudson Clark and your Jaden Johnson, added some nice transfers and Marquise Robinson, a few other guys that you really like. And Jaheim Singletary's back. They seem to like him a little bit better this offseason, Keon Stewart. But you've also got that young group. The freshman Selman Bridges is a guy that Darren Wilson spoke pretty highly of, about how he looks like an NFL corner. Both of the Metcalf boys seem to be flashing and taking those steps forward. So there's, again, like about 10 to 12 guys in that secondary, all of which I think Arkansas feels pretty good about. And so that's another thing I'm looking forward to, is to seeing how that develops there and see which place, how they move some of those guys around and get creative with how they use them. But I think that's the one position, especially on the defense, or the one area of the defense, where I actually do think Arkansas has a little bit of that depth and that ability to mix and match and to have answers to questions when they arise, which I just don't feel the same about the front seven on defense.
And that's probably a good thing too, to have more depth on the back end. Like if you had to pick a spot on the defense to have the most depth, that might be where you want it, because it's the last line of defense, right? We hear all the time, it feels so much more risky to put a freshman defensive back out on the field than maybe some other positions, because one mistake and it's over the top touchdown. And so they've got, some guys with experience, some older guys, some options back there that you feel pretty good about. And I'm glad you went through that list, but you mentioned Hudson Clark right off the top. Give that man his flowers. Give that man his respect.
Highest rated defensive back on the team.
Yeah.
Speaking of the video game, he's like 85 overall, man. Jeez.
Yeah. Well done. Well done.
And if you want to know how absurd that is, I went back and just looked at some of the old Arkansas ratings. Matt Jones's senior year was an 86 overall. So just saying, like, I think that there's a similarity there. Hudson Clark, the no-fly zone, also with Matt Jones. So, but hey, I know we'll get to some of your questions when it comes to fall camp, because I know a lot of them are bringing them in there. But I want to remind everybody that we're brought to you by Alumni Hall here in Fayetteville. Really appreciate them and their support of us here at Inside Arkansas. They've been a big supporter of ours for quite some time now, and it is the best place when it comes to all of your Razorback apparel. And all you Razorback fans getting ready for fall camp, you don't want to be wearing those same old ratty old jerseys and shirts and whatnot. That you want to have some class, right? You want to get something that's a little bit nicer, a little bit fresher. Got Peter Millar, got Columbia, got Nike. They got Southern Tide. They got all the different apparel items that you could choose from for men, women, kids, pets. They even have decor. So if you want decorations and putting some stuff out on your yard and getting all your crazy neighbors to say, wow, that person's really loves their Razorbacks. Yeah, well, they really do. And so get over to Alumni Hall right there, conveniently located on College in Fayetteville at 3417 North College Avenue. But you can also shop them online at alumnihall.com. That's alumnihall.com, and be able to have things delivered straight to your door to get you ready for the football season. It's the ultimate shopping, Razorback shopping destination is Alumni Hall here in Fayetteville. All right, let's get to some of these comments of people asking some questions. And I got a few of them, like Jeff. I feel like this question gets asked a lot, guys. Whatever happened to Anton Junkosh? Never hear about him on defensive updates at all.
He's one of the defensive linemen I actually feel like confident will help them in some form or fashion.
He's in that two deep.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be in the two deep at defensive end. Could end up being like the main one across from Landon Jackson. He's in that group of like the 3 or 4 guys on that front seven that you feel pretty good about. We'll see if it ends up being like him, Nico Davier, or if they move Eric Gregory around, whatever. But he's kind of in that group. He's not like, you remember that year they brought in those Missouri? Yeah, they brought in Trey Williams, John Ridgway, and Utsi from Missouri. And like immediately right away, you could kind of tell those 3 defensive linemen were like their top 3 guys. I didn't get that feel from Junkosh, where it's like he came right in and just like, I'm the guy. But I think he's settled in a little bit. It took him a few weeks in spring, but he's settled in. I think he's definitely going to be one of their top guys. But I'm not going to lie and say he's like blown us away, where we're like coming on these streams and be like, "Yo, Junkosh." But he's he's there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I remember early in the spring, getting through maybe the first week or so and being like, "Is he out there?" I don't know if I've seen this dude. Then I started paying attention to it. But once we started getting to the stadium, for those scrimmages, it seemed like we were writing down, Junkosh in the backfield for a touch sack or a TFL pretty regularly. So yeah, he definitely turned it on towards the end of spring. And from the sounds of it, I think Pittman said that he's pretty solid at their third D end right now. I'm pretty sure he was talking about Junkaj when he said that. So yeah, he's going to be in the mix. He'll be fine.
Also worth noting, he's number 4 on the defensive line. 300 pounds, number 4.
I like that. I love
fitting.
that. Yeah.
That's fitting. Well, speaking of another number 4, Isaac TeSlaa, we got asked about him a few times in the chat. Like when I remember watching him in spring, and he was a highly regarded player coming out of his small school up in
Hillsdale.
Michigan. Yeah, and because he had an offer to Ole Miss, which I mean, I feel like if you're a wide receiver and you have an offer to Ole Miss in that offense, you're usually pretty legit. And it's almost like I just erase I don't hold anything that happened last year against the wide receivers. So it's like I don't feel like we really got a fair shake. But I did notice that at least in spring, he was more running with the 2s a little bit. But that's what fall camp's about. You got weeks to try to prepare and get there. But I don't know. I don't know what his role is going to be. I don't know. You got a lot of talented wide receivers there. I just don't know if he's going to be a guy that's constantly out there, or if he may be one of those players that ends up with like 180 total receiving yards on the season. It could go either way.
He'll be in the mix. He'll be in the mix. He'll be out there. I mean, the biggest thing with him, he catches anything he can get his hands on, but it's just getting enough separation to get those targets. And I think we saw that a lot last year, man. I mean, he might go an entire game with only getting 1 target or whatever because he just couldn't get open. And they moved him around a little bit. I mean, he was on the outside early on. He was running some at the slot. Like they were trying to find ways to maximize him. And it was probably a little underwhelming based on what we saw in camp, which was literally, I mean, the dude had crazy hands and he's a freak athlete and a big guy. But I think once you got the book is kind of out after a season in the SEC, and it's all about, can he get open?
Well, yeah, I mean, John mentioned how highly regarded he was, and we all kind of felt that way. I mean, even in fall camp last year, like you're saying, like we kind of viewed he and Armstrong as a duo, as like, oh, these are the guys, the former D2 guys who are now ready to step up on this level. And obviously Andrew Armstrong lived up to that billing and more. I think TeSlaa, even last year, you could kind of see that Broden was starting to pass him up. And Broden, who we were disappointed with last year as well, it seems in the offseason that trend has ramped up, and Broden has really kind of solidified himself as the other outside guy. You mentioned them moving TeSlaa around. Like, in my opinion, I think he's going to be one of those guys who has to be on the outside. Like, he's not a, Isaiah Satania or even a Jaden Wilson type of guy who's going to be on the inside getting open quickly. And so from that standpoint, it's like he's not beating out Andrew Armstrong. I don't think he's beating out Tyrone Broden. Now, again, it's not like the rest of these receivers. It's not a super proven group where it's like you can't break in there. But I feel like that's an accurate representation of, like, he's kind of fallen down the ladder a little bit, but he's not so far down the ladder where he's like just buried. We'll still see him there. And like you mentioned, he's a big physical guy, makes catches in traffic, really good hands. And it's been around for a while. So maybe we'll see him, take that next step. But I think there's a lot of guys in that receiver room that are kind of all in the mix a little bit. But if TeSlaa wants to get on the field, he better hope some of these younger guys like a Davion Dozier or a CJ Brown don't get going in fall camp, frankly.
Yeah.
And also, and I'm not using TeSlaa as the example here necessarily, but man, the thing that I talk about hating, like certain things that get said, I hate when everyone says they're like a gym rat or like just always in the gym. Cause I'm like, I feel like every time something that's said about a player, they're never like good. And like, I'm just feeling like I don't want to hear about TeSlaa being a guy, a gym warrior or whatever, because I feel like that never pans out. It does not matter. So just one of those frustrating things that always comes up.
There's nothing wrong with being a tryhard.
Yeah, well, be a tryhard on the field. Like, do that. do that first. Like, because I mean, it could be wrong, but there's been a lot of players that I didn't look at as being like, oh man, these just are gym warriors, but yet they're really phenomenal players.
He does fit the mold of freak.
Yes,
so we got to give him that. He does.
Yeah, he does. A couple others here before we move on. James is saying, can you all talk about the running game players formation scene? Are there holes being created? I know with the so the running game, we talk about it like Jaquindon Jackson's just that dude, man. Like I as soon as I saw him in the spring, I'm like, yep, that's an SEC running back that's really good, and I can't wait to see what he ends up doing, and also even Rashad Dubinion, of course, you have coming back. Braylon Russell, is he going to play some sort of role? But man, I think I talked about this in the spring, and I'll go ahead and stick to it. But if you want a little prediction or whatever, I believe that Jaquindon Jackson's going to have a better rushing year, better season than what Rocket Sanders will have at South Carolina. I think he's built for that. And
that's spicy.
and people talk about Petrino's offense, and they talk about the quarterback, but let's not forget, like Petrino, he's had some really good running backs and successful running games too. So I feel like Jaquindon Jackson is just going to be built around that.
Yeah, I like that. That's spicy. Yeah, and I like I said earlier, I think it's going to be interesting to see how those carries get distributed over the course of the season. From the sounds of it, and this is no surprise at all, and Pittman said as much. It sounds like the run blocking is ahead of pass pro right now with the offensive line. And that's just something that's going to be the case in camp. And they also don't go full pads. Now, they strapped on shoulder pads. They've got the shells on, but they don't go full pads until tomorrow. So that'll be a little bit more telling. And then they got the scrimmages the next couple Thursdays. So you get a little bit better of an idea about holes and things like that. I did see this morning, though, Jackson Fuller put out a tweet with them doing some stuff out of I formation, which I thought was pretty interesting. So you want to talk about formation scene? There's something right there that maybe we haven't seen a bunch of in recent years. So,
do they have a fullback? Do they have a fullback like a what was it, Kiro Small? Did they have that type of guy back there?
Poski? Is it Poski?
Is it Poski? Yeah.
I think he might be the fullback. Yeah. But no, I think this offseason, as much as we've talked about Taylor Green and, the excitement that he brings and the receivers and how good we feel about that group, I think the run game has been the most improved overall aspect of this team this offseason. There were stretches in the spring where the defense didn't have a chance. Like, they were just gashing them 8-9 yards at a time. And we've seen so many different running backs rip off big runs. Isaiah Augustov, before he transferred, had like a 200-yard scrimmage where he just ripped off two massive runs. Like, we've seen some progression out of this run game. And I think Jaquindon Jackson is so well-rounded as a running back. I just really love he and Rashad Dubinion as like a 1-2 punch. I think Jaquindon just kind of checks all the boxes. I mean, he's a massive guy. He's 235, but he's also got that shiftiness. He doesn't have breakaway speed where he's going to have all these 85-yard runs. But I think he's going to be a consistent workhorse. We'll see how the roles, we talked about how they're going to distinguish the roles and the reps and how they're going to, spread those out. I do think Jaquindon Jackson is going to be the 1A if Rashad Dubinion is the 1B. And I wouldn't be surprised if down the stretch they start really leaning on Jackson a little bit more for maybe 18, 20, 22 carries a game. But I really like the group overall. And I think Taylor Green's legs are something that we haven't gotten to see a ton, especially at practice. Like, they don't touch the quarterbacks like at all. I'll be interested to see. He's not a big guy like KJ, so I don't know if he's going to be able to handle that 15, 20 carries a game type of workload. But I think there's going to be some times where he decides to keep it and he runs for a while. I think that we haven't gotten to see a ton of that, but I'm pretty bullish on Arkansas's run game going into the season.
What was Taylor Green's speed on the video game?
It was over 20 miles. 92? I mean, he's like 21 something. Like, he's up there.
Are you mean on EA Sports?
I'm talking EA Sports.
Yeah, he's 91 speed.
Yeah, so he can cook a little bit.
Dude, he's a cheat code on the game. They have him a little bit overhyped, frankly. Like, they have his like break sack is like 90, like his acceleration, like all of that. Like, he's you would think he was Michael Vick just playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Well, see, going back to that, probably shows how much the game changed. Because again, I went and looked at those Matt Jones statistics and everything. He was at an 83 speed, is what EA Sports had him at.
That's just the research department has gotten better over the years. I feel like that's just one they were like, this white senior quarterback, he can't be that fast.
Yeah, how do you think that works? I mean, and maybe that's already been explained in one of these trailers that I didn't get to watch. But do you think like the developers of the game, do they send people to these schools, or do they call like a strength and conditioning coach and say, hey, what are these numbers looking like, or what? I don't know.
I think they communicate with the schools a good bit, but I do think there has to be some type of baseline, set it somewhere. And you can tell, like, if you look at the roster, like I've looked at Arkansas's roster enough to where like I kind of can see some of the things that I disagree with and whatever. Like, for instance, they have not taken into account, like they have Isaac DeSlaw listed as the number 2 receiver for Arkansas behind Andrew Armstrong. Make a quick phone call, maybe look at our depth charts and stuff like that. You could probably figure that out, but it's very interesting. They have Caden Henley as the starting left outside linebacker at Arkansas on the game, just because like they have, I believe it's like Sorey and Spence and Dix are all middle linebackers. It's like a weird thing where Caden Henley, like 71 overall, is like the quote unquote starting left outside linebacker in a 4-3. And it's like,
Right.
Okay. Like we got to do something here.
I was kind of hoping that they would be able to upgrade or update the ratings, kind of like they do in Madden throughout the year. Like, will they do that in the college football?
That'd be cool.
I think that would be cool. And this kind of leads into the question we were just talking about. It says 1 to 10. What do y'all think of the chances that Arkansas fields a 1,000-yard rusher this season? Here's the thing: is I actually feel more confident about it now, and the only reason I do is because we know it's going to be Jaquindon Jackson and Rashad Dubinion, pretty much. Like, Russell may get some run here and there, but when you just have the two running backs that are going to be kind of your main guys, to me, that opens it up, assuming that you have a successful rushing attack. It opens it up to where you could be more likely to have a 1,000-yard rusher, unlike, was it when 2021, when Arkansas had Rocket Sanders, Traylon Smith, AJ Green, all these guys.
I think they had 4 or 5 500-yard rushers or something crazy like that.
Yeah. So I think it's actually more likely just because you have not as many key running backs in the backfield as you've had previously.
I wouldn't rule it out. It wouldn't surprise me. I could definitely see it happening. I can't put a confident prediction on it until I know how much they're going to run Taylon Green, though.
Yeah.
Until I know how much he's and I'm talking design runs, not just him, avoiding getting his head taken off and scrambling out of it. But I think that, you know what? I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm in.
I think I'm with you, John. And I wouldn't say I'm like 1 to 10. I think I'm probably more in that like 6, 7 range. Again, injuries happen. Taylon Green could end up being a huge part of the run game. But like I said, I hope they don't plan on relying on Taylon Green a ton as a design quarterback runner. Because especially between the tackles and stuff like that. It's just a very different. I think he's a better overall athlete than KJ, but KJ's a big boy. He could take those hits and go in there and mix it up a little bit. I don't know if I want to see Taylon Green doing that too much. So if they're able to kind of scale him back a little bit and really keep it to a 2, maybe 3 rotation if Rodney Hill really flashes. But I think it will be a heavy dose of Jackson and Dubinion, which could lead you to having like Jackson finish with like 1,100 yards and Dubinion have 700, 800. Like that type of thing is about what I envision.
Yeah, and I would even go as far as to say that if Jaquindon Jackson has over 1,000 yards rushing this year, Arkansas wins 7 games. I think that's the case because I feel like the offense passing wise is going to be serviceable no matter what.
John's letting it fly today, bro.
John's takes are getting progressively hotter.
John's going to have an 11-1 by the end of fall camp, man.
That's what I do. It's a tradition like no other. Like I start playing the video game and I start watching fall camp and I'm just like, I could see it. Yeah, LSU's not that good. Just try to get it into my mind of why it works out. But we're actually going to have a kind of a fun little question to talk. Speaking of fall camp, and it's brought to you by Davis and Garrett Insurance, your independent auto owners insurance agency, securing what matters the most. And we call it a poll question, but I just think it's funny because again, we've covered fall camp a lot. We have seen it. We have heard from coaches. We've heard from players. Mine's dating back all the way to the very beginning of the Bielema era. But who is the most memorable player for y'all that got mentioned in fall camp or talked about in fall camp that didn't actually really play that much? Like, who is that?
Well, for me, and I was thinking about this question, and I was trying not to do something super obvious, but I was thinking about since I've been covering the team, which has been the Pittman era, since I've been on the beat. And one that really stood out to me the first year, I must have wrote, at least a half dozen camp stories about this dude he never played, Andrew Parker.
Yeah,
Andrew Parker's a big one.
We're talking about, you would hear everybody talk about him, the coaches, whatever. Looks like Ray Lewis, just chiseled out of granite. And
jacked, bro, he was so jacked. I still think he's going to break out next year.
Man, and it was always his turn, and then he was always passed by at least 2 walk-on linebackers who were getting the reps. And I think he had like 10 or 12 tackles his last year before he transferred or whatever. But then it was a situation where literally everyone left. He was like almost the only linebacker left in the room. So you're thinking, okay, maybe this is going to be his breakout, and then he dipped. So yeah, Andrew Parker would be that dude for me since I've been covering the team.
Curtis, what was the name of that running back? The track guy. He ended up transferring out to Oglesby.
Yes.
Josh Oglesby is another one where it's like, oh, great wow. I see Hogwall Burner saying TJ Hammonds is the obvious answer. The problem with TJ Hammonds is he played a good bit. He was at Arkansas for 9 years. He wasn't like a starter or anything, but like he had I mean, he won Arkansas that Coastal Carolina game in 2017. He played. He was just a very polarizing figure, but he probably played a little too much for this criteria here. But I think Harper Cole is one.
Oh
He
my
never
God.
got hyped up as much by the coaches, but dude, at practice, I swear to God, it was the first fall camp I ever covered, and I remember he was cooking everybody. I mean, like they would
Every
do one-on-ones,
day.
and he would just be like, Dwight McGlothern, Monteric Brown, it doesn't matter. You're getting cooked. And he would cook them all, bro. It was insane.
100%.
I've got a long list of this. I was ready for this question. Y'all remember Dalton Hyatt?
Yeah, he's a quarterback.
He had a pretty good spring game that one year where he broke off a few runs, and he like always got talked about as like the most athletic quarterback they had. They moved him to receiver at one point, and it never happened. But he was one that got talked about a good bit. There's a few other names that I kind of threw out there, like Kendall Catalon. I feel like was another one where obviously his brother Jalen Catalon was very good. He would always kind of do the thing where he would make some plays in fall camp, and we'd talk about him a little bit. But another one, just kind of my last one that I'll throw out here is Shane Clennon, offensive lineman.
Oh man,
he was one of those dudes that, because I mean, obviously Bielema and Pittman all were big O line guys and stuff. Apparently, he could play all three positions, or like left, tackle, guard, center. He would always get thrown in the mix, and he would always be in the two deep, and just never played. I don't know. I don't know if he should have played. I just mean like he just felt like one that we heard about a lot as like, oh yeah, he's our emergency center, or he'll play left tackle if we need him to. He'll play, and then just never happened.
Yeah, like I mine goes back to a player, and I think I even brought this up to you guys too. Of like JoJo Robinson is a player that I will always remember in fall camp and even in spring, because I think it was in the 2015, 2016 type of era of Bielema, and he was one of those players, a wide receiver from Florida. Because you remember they were big on recruiting the state of Florida because they had all these Florida players. That Florida speed's different. And it was him and Kendrick Edwards that got mentioned a lot at wide receiver from Florida. And they talked about JoJo Robinson returning punts because he was like, had that insane speed. And I don't think JoJo Robinson made one single play at Arkansas that I could even bring up. But he was like a highly recruited player.
He took a kick out of the end zone on a kickoff to start. He was against Texas Tech, against Patrick Mahomes that year. He took it from like 9 yards deep in the end zone and ran it out to like the 12. And I was like, I hate him, bro. I hate him.
Yeah. I don't even remember that. That's impressive. But that's maybe why he didn't play. But yeah, again, there's so many players that always
get
the
team in the middle of the year, right? Did I make that up?
Him and Edwards both. I think either were kicked off or quit. One of the two.
Brandon Martin definitely got kicked off the team. He was another one where they were getting. But yeah, Kendrick Edwards caught like a touchdown against Georgia when it was like 48-7. And when he caught the touchdown, I was like, this guy, watch out. The light bulb.
Because it was also a lot of those wide receivers during that time were kind of like guys that either played or not. Because Drew Morgan was one of those until he broke out his final year. Like he was kind of the one that always had great spring games and whatnot. But there was always those players for JoJo Robinson, man, and Jeremy Patton was the other JUCO guy that came in, and everyone thought he was going to be good. Because then Brandon Martin get kicked off the team. He like punched Devwall Whaley and broke his jaw or something like that. I think
that's what they say.
Yeah,
that's what they say. Yeah,
that's what
hands on him.
That was back in the day. Those were like the last era of like big JUCO transfers. Because nowadays it's really like not a thing. Rakeem Boyd is probably the last notable one that Arkansas's had that like really made a huge impact.
Yeah,
but yeah, Brandon Martin and Jeremy Patton. I remember thinking both those guys were going to be NFL dudes.
Who was the JUCO defensive end and in Pittman's first year that just looked like an absolute freak of nature, and he wound up transferring or off the team or whatever, and then I don't know, I think he's kind of had some mental health stuff going on, but he looked like Julius Coates. Yes.
Coates. Yeah. That dude, I swear to God, could have played in the NFL if he would have just kept his head on straight. He was so good, dude.
Yeah. The first practice I ever went to after getting on the beat, because when I started, it was right during COVID. And so it was like, okay, you can only have one person per outlet go out there or whatever. And Trey called me and he was like, hey, get out there. He couldn't go that day. So I was like, all right, great. I didn't know anybody except Tom Murphy. But I go out there and I walk in and he's the first guy I see. And I was like, holy, this dude is huge, man. You want to talk about looking the part. That dude was an absolute monster.
I think he convinced himself that he was a higher power at one point on Twitter.
He did do that. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, he went nuts. But dude, he was I still think like if he would have just not been an idiot, he probably would still be playing football and making a lot of money.
Yeah. And I actually forgot that he was at East Mississippi Community College like last chance U. I didn't realize he came from that.
There we go.
He was there when they stopped doing the show there. Like he just
went that's right.
After they moved to a different school. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I mean, he was, he's just what he's listed at the unofficial Arkansas Razorbacks. He's listed at only 6'6", 290. So, kind of.
And there was zero fat on his body too.
None.
It was all muscle. But also Jeff Burgon says Tykees Crawford is. I can't believe we didn't talk about it. We've talked about Tykees Crawford being this criteria forever. Tykees Crawford is a fall camp Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And he's still on the team, and I guess technically could still play at some point. But
I want him to, man. And that's the thing. Like it's not taking any slights at the guys. I mean, he's out there, he's working hard or whatever. But yeah, it is a thing where every year I feel like I'm writing multiple stories about position battle brewing at tackle. Oh, Crawford moving to the inside, maybe, and it just
Dalton Wagner is who's to blame because they set it up that year where he would beat out Dalton Wagner, and then Dalton Wagner just didn't lose the job and then had a good year. So it like wasn't even a big deal, but it was like one of those things where it's like it's a tough break, like I think the coaching staff literally set it up so he would win, and then it just didn't work out.
Yep.
All right, so I know we got some other things that we want to talk about too, but I want to do some of these fun over-unders. Yeah, right? Over-unders. I don't know why. It's one of those things when I say over-unders, I feel like I'm saying it wrong, like it needs to be flipped, and I don't know why. But yes, over-unders that we're going to talk about here in just a second. But first, I got to tell you, of course, it's brought to you by our friends over at Brothrow. If you go to brothrow.com, you'll be able to check out to where, you know what, you like to bet on sports, right? Well, it's a lot of fun too, but it's even more fun to bet up against your friends. And when you go to brothrow.com, it's a community betting where you are able to go and say, hey, I want to put $10 on this team to go -3. And another guy says, well, I want to go $10 to say +3. So you go up against each other and you see who wins. And then you end up paying up with a very easy way of Venmo or Cash App, which hopefully all of you have because it is the 21st century after all. And it makes it really easy to pay it out. And so you get to have a bunch of different things like over-unders, you get to have money lines, spreads, everything like that. And you can check it out at brothrow.com. It's free to sign up. You must be 21 years or older. And it is available in most states. No VIG, pays even money. It's the best way to do it. So check it out at brothrow.com. Again, that's brothrow.com. All right, so let's go ahead and get into some of these. And I'm throwing them out there because I don't even think that I told you guys of what we're going to be doing these over-unders on. But we'll start with a really easy one, layup one. Over-under Arkansas's final SEC finish this year, 12.5. You guys going over-under?
I'm going to go under. Meaning they will finish higher than 12th. You know what I mean?
Like ask that question.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna try to think of the teams. South Carolina, I think Arkansas will be better than, based on everything I've seen and read. Vanderbilt, we're gonna go ahead and assume that one.
Mississippi State.
I was gonna say there's got to be another West team. Mississippi State's an interesting one. Arkansas gets them at home, right?
No, it's on the road.
We watched that 7-3.
Yeah, can you not?
That's tough. Yeah, that's a tough one. I still think Mississippi State's one.
That would just have them at 13, right? With just those teams. So who else?
Right. So you need someone else. I was gonna say Auburn is the other West team where it's like I could see Arkansas finishing above them. I'm not saying they will. And now they have to go to Auburn and Mississippi State. So maybe that's what makes it tough. Is there an East team? I say West team. There's no divisions anymore.
Well, how big of a mess is Florida going to be?
Yeah, so it's their beat guys seem to think that they're in pretty good shape, But I mean, who knows? We'll know within like 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'm going to go over. I think it's going to be 13.
Yeah, 13.
I think you could still go 6-6 and make a bowl game and be 13 in this SEC. I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's fair. Of course, I know you guys are shocked by this. I'm going to go under, but I'm not going under by much. That's why I kind of said because I looked at it as like, what would John Neighbors think this team is going to do, and then go above that as the over under. Because I know I'm going to go with the under, but I honestly think that Arkansas is going to finish 10th. 10th, and I think that they're going to find a way to finish 10th, and it's not going to be because of they're just going to be that amazing. I think there's going to be some disappointing teams. I know that you guys mentioned Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Mississippi State. Like those are the 3 teams there, which means Arkansas has got to finish above 3 other teams. And I'm like, I feel like there's going to be at least those random teams that
I have no idea what Kentucky's got going on. Like they could be 5-7.
It could be Florida. It could be a Kentucky team like that.
They're vacating wins is what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like even like a Texas A&M, like with Elko, I'm not saying that they're going to be a bad team, but it's like, I have no idea how, what they're going to do. Yeah. Like they could be a team that's, 8-4, or they could be a team that's 4-8. I have no clue.
Oklahoma.
That's the next one I was going to bring up. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like Oklahoma, they had I still think it's weird that Dylan Gabriel had that year and then he leaves. Like it's still crazy that happened.
For the record, I am not saying I think Arkansas is better than Oklahoma. I'm saying Oklahoma might be one of those disappointing, SEC team. Yeah. They go 7-5.
I think I'm changing my answer to over, by the way. I've just crunched the numbers. And I do agree that there are teams that it would take teams falling apart. But I don't think Arkansas has a particularly high ceiling. You know what I mean? So it's whereas Oklahoma, however bad we think they are, their ceiling is probably 9-10 wins. You know what I mean? Yeah. Even Florida, for an example, I think they are in a bit of an implosion waiting to happen, but they're talented enough to win 8 games. So who knows? I think 13 is probably the exact number.
Yeah. I mean, again, I just, there's always some uncertainty because there are also those teams that end up being good that no one expected. Like last year, when Missouri kind of came out of nowhere and ended up being
that's another
really
team.
Good.
Are we 100% sure Arkansas is going to finish behind Missouri in the standings?
And I don't know.
Yes, I am.
I don't know.
John's not sold. I know John hates Missouri.
Yeah, well, we're friends. It's like, I don't know. I feel like with Missouri, I want to see them do it more than just 1 year. I'm not saying that last year didn't count. I'm just saying I want to see if the consistency, because people forget Eli Drinkwitz, that was his first winning season in the SEC last year. He's never had a winning season up until that point. So can you do it again? We'll see. But yeah, I'll go with the end of there. All right, here's another one for you. Over under Taylon Green's SEC rank in passing yards. That's not supposed to say 12.5, by the way, because it is messed up. I'll have to fix that. But I have it set at 6.5 as far as in total passing yards where it ranks.
He'll be behind that. I feel like.
Yeah.
I feel like
I'm not sure he'll be top 10.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some quarterbacks in the SEC that freaking air it out, But who knows? I mean, I think that's probably. I think he'll probably be in that 8 to 10 to 12 range, but I think he'll be efficient. You know what I mean? I think they're going to kind of dumb him down a little bit. I don't think he's going to throw 36 passes a game.
Yeah. Well, and
run the ball a good bit.
And what I'm basing this off of, and this is probably a dumb way of basing it, but I'm like, okay, a Petrino offense, where quarterbacks that have been in the SEC coached by Petrino, where have they ranked? And I believe, according to my numbers, the worst quarterback total passing yards rank in the SEC for a Petrino coach quarterback in the SEC was at 6th. So that's where it's okay, so put it there.
I like that. I look at
man.
Yeah.
Back in the day, there just weren't that many teams that threw the ball a ton.
Right.
So Arkansas having 300-yard passers was they were kind of one of the few, but nowadays, it's so easy for quarterbacks to rack up stats. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of that Missouri quarterback that we're talking about, Brady Cook. He's gonna throw for 4,000 yards easily.
I mean, Taylon Green's his highest yard total as a passer in a season is 2,042 yards.
Yeah.
That's at Boise State against whatever defenses they're playing. I know it's different, the Petrino effect. I think, let me say this. I think Taylon Green is going to throw for a career high in passing yards this season, but is it going to be top 6 in the SEC? I don't think so.
Yeah.
All right. The next one that we have is a team total. Over under Arkansas's total team sacks for this year, 29.5. For reference, they had 29 last season. So do they have just as many, or do they have less, or do they have
the year
more?
before they broke the school record?
Yeah, it was 40. Right? I think I looked it up. It was 48 or something crazy like that. Drew Sanders had pretty much a third of them himself. But yeah, 29.5 team total sacks this year.
I'm going to go under that, I think. Yeah.
I'm going to go over, and here's why I'm going over. Y'all remember when Travis Williams got hired and it was like this narrative that he just would run cover zero blitz like crazy, like just let him go. And it was like, oh man, Arkansas is going to do this whole thing. I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but I think for this defense to, achieve what they want to achieve, they're going to have to get weird, and they're going to have to start doing stuff like, using Brad Spence as like a edge rusher and doing, which by the way is a thing that happens on the video game. I just want to say he's apparently like the backup defensive end. I don't know how that happens, but I'll see Brad Spence with his hand in the dirt every now and then. But I think they're going to get weird with how they use some of those linebackers. And, I think there's going to be some games where Sorey might have a sack or two, or they might have a defensive back, or that Worth kid, they have him at nickel, maybe like something like that. I think they're going to create some pressure. I do still think they're going to give up a ton of yards. Like I think I'm not buying Arkansas's defense actually, but I do think they'll be able to get the 30 sacks.
I think so too. I do, because I think Landon Jackson's going to be a force, and as long as he stays healthy, and I think because of how good he's going to be, could take the pressure, or maybe they take the focus away to open up some other guys to get the sacks that go in there too. But yeah, it's just funny how 29 sacks. It seems like it's so much. But yet, when you look at it, like comparatively speaking, for the rest of the SEC and whatnot, it's really not all that much. But still, I'll probably go with the over there. And this will be the final like serious one, because I also have a random one too to put in there. Since we talk special teams, over under field goals made by Arkansas this year, 17.5. For reference, last year with Cam Little, they made 20. So 17.5 over under.
I don't. What's crazy is I think Phillips even was under that at Hawaii, even when he was making it. Like I think he was like 14 of 18 and 16 of 20.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to trust their kicker a ton. I think anytime they're past the 25, they're going for it on fourth down or punting if it's crazy enough. I don't think they're going to attempt a crazy amount of long field goals.
Well, let me throw this caveat in there. This is also assuming that this team has improved in red zone scoring. And when it's first and goal from the 8, they actually convert.
Well,
yeah. No, that's completely fair, because I think that's fair. But I do think ultimately, like, I just think this team's gonna have to take some chances.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're gonna be playing for 3 a ton.
Yeah. I think I'm under on that too.
Yeah.
I was hoping you were gonna do interceptions, because that was gonna be the one, whatever you said on defense, where I was like, over.
Dude, they pick up a lot of passes in practice.
Yeah. I mean, I need to look at how many interceptions they had last year as a team. I'd have to look that up. That'd be a good one.
That's the thing that they did last year. Defensively, Arkansas was not a bad defense last year. I mean, just across the board, they were around middle of the pack in a lot of things, but they created a lot of fumbles, a lot of picks. I mean, they scored like 4 or 5 defensive touchdowns. Like, they do seem to create havoc at a pretty high rate, even if they're giving up a ton of yards. And so that's kind of why I feel about the sacks and, with the interceptions, if that were to happen. I think they're going to be being weird.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. They had, as far as interceptions go, last year they had 12 interceptions on the season.
More.
Yeah, and then fumble recoveries, they had 5. So,
and they scored like 4 touchdowns off of those.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, it's like they just needed the other team to screw up to help them score, because they couldn't do it on their own offensively and whatnot. But yeah, we may play that the next time and do that, because we'll do this over under game quite a bit. I'm also going to take the under too, but maybe for the other reasons why, because I think this team's going to score more in the red zone touchdown wise than they did field goals, and that's going to help them out, because I felt like last year like 20 field goals is a ton. Yeah, I feel like a lot of that was just because this team did not know how to score in the red zone. He's getting into the end zone. So, all right, and final, this is the biggest one, the most important one. Over under the game, Sam Pittman rocks a black top. He did it 3 times last year, according to my really investigative reporting. But when he's up there wearing a black shirt, black long sleeve, black hoodie, black whatever.
We're saying for the game day, it's got to be his game day.
Game day, yes. Game day, you got 12 opportunities, 13 if they make a bowl game, 2.5. Well, how do we feel?
The pessimist in me wants to say under, because he'll be out of the job by the bye week. But
whoa.
Hey, listen, it still counts. He's got to wear a shirt on game day still.
He just rattled off 3 straight black shirts before getting fired.
No, I don't believe that. But I'm gonna go under, because I thought he started getting kind of crafty with it last year. You remember that it's like that hoodie jacket. It was like one like different colored sleeves, and you know what I'm talking about? Like more like a beige kind of sleeve, and then and so he kind of he's got a little bit of swag to him. I think it depends on how long it stays hot outside too.
Yeah, dude. Because if it's like people like I don't know, because what he does is like he does the black, and then he'll do a camo one.
He'll do a camo for sure.
He'll do camo.
Yeah,
but I don't feel like he. You know what? I don't ever think he's worn white. I don't think he has ever worn a white pullover or hoodie or shirt or anything. It's always been red, black, or camo.
Right. And he'll throw some quarter zips in there in the red. And
I'm going under just simply because I wouldn't have guessed that he had done it 3 times last year. I think that he's a pretty traditional, like, you know, obviously, like, since he's been head coach, Arkansas hasn't done any like weird uniforms or anything. I think he's going to get back to the Cardinal and white and just ride it out. Even his warm wear will not be black.
His warm wear.
I know, because I was started thinking about it. Like, man, if there was any prop bets, you know what? How about this? We'll do this prop bet. Game 1, UAPB, 6:00 Thursday night in Little Rock. What color is the top?
Red.
It'll be red. Yeah, he's going to come out the gate red.
Yeah.
So no multicolor, just full on red. Like nothing crazy like that. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll go with the stripe.
Okay.
So where are you thinking? Like, you think it'll like have a sleeve stripe or what?
Just like a tradition, like a striped polo shirt.
Oh, like a striped polo. Yeah, because it'll be hot. Yeah, he's gonna be.
Yeah.
Y'all remember when Brett wore that sweater in Arlington?
Yeah, I remember that, and there was a reason why he wore that sweater. It's the only size that could fit him, and I thought he needed in an emergency situation. But yeah, I don't think a head coach of a major college football team should ever wear a sweater or a sweatshirt. Like, not a good look for me. Just to be honest.
You don't like the old Jim Tressel pullovers. He used to wear those little. What's the term I'm looking for here?
Sweater vest.
Oh yeah, with the tie underneath. Yeah, man.
You know that's fine. I'm fine with that. It's just the sweatshirts that look like, you know, what the sorority girls wear when they're making that walk of shame home.
Don't dress like Andrew Ellis when you're coaching a Division I football team.
Yes, that should be the rule. That should be a rule everywhere. Don't dress like Andrew Ellis.
I've got one for you guys. It's not really an over under, but it's a trivia kind of deal here.
All right.
This morning I was looking on CBS Sports, and they did their 1 through 134 rankings. So they ranked literally all 134 college football teams. Just where do you think Arkansas is at on that? Give me a number. 1 through 134. Where would you think off the top of your head Arkansas might be?
67.
Okay.
I'm going to say 76.
Okay. 54.
Shut up. No
higher than I thought they would be. 54. The only SEC teams behind them are Mississippi State at 71 and Vanderbilt at 91.
So it's basically like the recruiting rankings. Like it's just the same numbers.
Pretty much. Here's what's funny. Right behind so Arkansas is ranked right ahead of Coach Prime in Colorado. And then right after them, the man we were just talking about, Big Bert in Illinois.
I love that.
Yeah.
I hope Arkansas plays Colorado in a bowl game.
Oh, that'd be so much fun.
That'd be awesome.
So much fun. Yeah.
Like, who's more likely to?
I'd settle for either one.
Well, hey, listen, both Arkansas and Colorado last year went 4-8. Who's more likely to go to a bowl game?
Meet us in Houston for the Texas Bowl. Is that still an option?
Yeah, I think so. Now I want to go to the Vegas Bowl. That would be the one. That's an SEC connection now. And imagine Coach Prime in Vegas. Like they would love that. And then we'd love it too, because it's like that would be the only 6-6 bowl game I'd actually be excited to go to for Arkansas. Like I would not care about the Liberty Bowl, because is it still?
I ain't going to Memphis, dude. I'm not going to Memphis.
I refuse to. I've done it too many dadgum times, man. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the Liberty Bowl. I'm sick of them having to use porta potties because they ran out of water or whatever it was. Sick of it. Because is it the Birmingham is an SEC connection in that like one still?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's like the Belk Bowl is still the famous one that Arkansas
is Music City a thing?
Yeah,
for SEC still. Like
I think so.
That one would be cool.
I want to go. Yeah, I want to go to that one. Arkansas has only been once. Can you all name who they played and lost to in that bowl game?
UNLV.
Wisconsin.
No, that was the Vegas Bowl. What'd you say, Curtis?
Wisconsin.
No, that was close though. That was the Capital One Bowl.
Dang, that's right.
Who did they lose to in the Music City? Oklahoma.
Nope.
What year was
it?
it?
Team.
Big Ten. What year are we talking here?
Mid 2000s. I'll go
Iowa.
with that. Nope.
Mid 2000s.
Why is this driving me nuts? Because I know.
When I was a kid, I literally used to just go through and look at the old schedules. I feel like
Arkansas lost 29 to 14, I believe is the final score.
Was it Missouri?
Nope. Big Ten. Big Ten team.
Big Ten. Who did Arkansas lose to in the Music City Bowl?
The most random bowl loss probably ever. It wasn't very memorable.
No. Who was it?
Minnesota. The Golden Gophers. Yeah. Pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the Minnesota team that had like Sean Marion. Not Sean Marion.
Merriman?
No, they had two running backs, and one of them played for the Cowboys. Yeah, the big dreads.
Marion Barber.
Thank you.
Barber was awesome.
I'm pretty sure he was on that team too. So yeah, Minnesota. That's fun trivia. Yeah, Minnesota, and I don't even remember who the coach was in Minnesota back then. For all I know, is PJ Fleck still. Huh?
Was it Jerry Kill? You remember Jerry Kill?
Yes, but I don't think it was him. But yeah, what didn't he end up coach? Didn't that guy end up coaching like with Ohio State or something like that after they fired him?
Well, he had to retire. He medically retired, I think, because he was having seizures like every other week. But yeah, I don't know who the Minnesota coach was before him.
Yeah, I don't really think it matters that much either.
We talked enough about the 2003 Music City Bowl or whatever.
His name is Glenn Mason apparently. So for what that's worth, I don't know. Doesn't matter. Anyways, real quick though, I know there's we got just about 15 or so minutes left here to go through some things, and real quick we'll do a little bit of a recruiting update, if you want to call it that. We'll make it a recruiting update. And Arkansas got a pretty big weekend for Razorback football, at least commits. Couple guys for 2026, couple guys for 2025. We'll start with the guys from 2025 because that's, of course, the most relevant ones to right now. But they got an in-state kid, 2025 running back Cameron Settles out of Parkview, who committed to Arkansas. He's 5'11", 195. Chose Arkansas over Missouri, Arkansas State, Memphis, Tulsa, and Yale. Just because, why not?
Had his options open.
Yep. Hey, listen, Parkview Magnet School, man, they got some smart kids down there. So, got a nice pickup there for them, and also for the JUCO side of things too. Here we go with the JUCO. Another guy, Shannon Blair, who, yes, he is also from the East Mississippi Community College, EMCC, like from Last Chance U. He is a guy who is 6'1", 190, safety / cornerback, and started at Tennessee, but then had to go to the JUCO route and chose Arkansas over Memphis, Liberty, Charlotte, and others.
Those are the JUCO guys you want.
I was going to say, it's a little bit interesting to see him taking a JUCO guy that early, but if he started in the SEC, that makes a little bit more sense. And then, getting the kid from Parkview after, it seems like it was just a few weeks ago, people were kind of jumping off the cliff because Arkansas was missing on all these in-state kids. So you get out to the 2025 class here and you go ahead and lock one down. That's a good omen. That's probably exactly what you need to do and make a better habit of keeping the kids in the state.
Yeah, when it's also that time, recruiting feels like such a momentum-based thing.
Yep.
It's always nice to have a day like that where you're just kind of, boom, boom, boom. These things happen. Kids in that class see that. Kids, around these kids see that. And it's always nice to have that kind of public perception right as you're launching into a football season. Kind of get back in the good graces because, man, people have recency bias. Whatever you've done lately, that's what matters. And so, obviously, we'll see what Arkansas does on the field in football this year. But it seems like kids are pretty easy. If you just start rattling off a few good things, they forget that you were bad last year. It's kind of how it works. And so we'll see if Arkansas is able to kind of carry this into the season.
Yeah, I see that there's still looks like top 30 in the team rankings there in 2025, around 28. That's just kind of where they're at. It feels like from year to year, man. Maybe that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I was even looking at with I don't know, players and how will they even be at that school and how long will they be? Like, it's just like it almost doesn't even matter. I can't wait to see like this recruiting class that Arkansas had last year. Looking 2 years from now, how many of those players are still on the roster? Like, it's probably going to be next to none.
It's alarming when you go back and really look through the lists of the years.
Yeah, it really is. Then on part of the 2026 class, which is also even further down the road, so who knows how this will go. Arkansas got a commitment out of another defensive back, Adam Austin, who was a guy who was out of Oak. This one of the players that was there part of the Woo Pig weekend, or well, it's not the Woo Pig weekend. I keep wanting to say that's the Razorback Hog Wild weekend. There we go.
They have no shortage of names for these things.
I'm telling you, just call it a recruiting party or something. Like, make it easy. But he chose Arkansas. He's 6'2", 212 over Missouri, Baylor, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State. Also had offers to Texas Tech, Washington State, Vanderbilt, UNLV, Houston, and Iowa State. So nice little get for them. But the big dog and the big one that they got for the 2026 class was the edge rusher out of Durant, Oklahoma. It's Colton Yarborough, who is a bona fide 4-star, 6'5", 220. And he chose Arkansas over, and I don't even care about reading any of the other schools. He chose Arkansas over Georgia and LSU. The other schools don't matter. Like, to me, I'm like, if you chose Arkansas over Georgia, LSU, you're a really dadgum good player, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. Yarborough's good, man. That's a really nice pickup. Who knows what that's going to look like in a couple of years, and those guys get to campus if the coaching staff is even still going to be here. But that is something that I think you can point to if you're Sam Pittman. Like, let's say, like if things really go south this year, it's fair to say Sam Pittman ain't going to be here. If they win 3 games, 4 games, whatever, that's a wrap. It's over. But let's say they go 6-6 or whatever, and it's kind of on that border of, well, saw some progress. Do we want to continue to move in this direction? Well, what do? You got to have a plan. Mike Anderson didn't have a plan, and that was a big part of the reason why he didn't stay. But for Pittman, I mean, hey, if you can point out and say, yeah, we got a pretty solid 2025 class here. We got the number 8 class in 2026. So things are looking up for the future. That at least gives Hunter Yurachek and other people something to think about. So the more that guys that they can rack up early on, the better of an omen it is for him if they get into that situation where it's like a coin flip at the end of the year, whether to retain or move on.
Does anybody in the chat have Durant High School's schedule this year? I want to know if Yarborough plays at home the night before the A&M game. Maybe we make a little stop on our way down to Arlington.
Yeah,
stop in and watch some high school ball. See how Durant and Yarborough are doing.
Talk to our guy.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. And plus, they got a casino right there in Durant. So I mean.
That's literally the only thing I know about Durant.
Whenever y'all said Durant, I was like, oh, I know it's in Durant. But I have to throw some cold water on this for just 1 second. Because every year people do the thing where Arkansas gets like 4 or 5 commits early in the process. And they're like, dude, our class for whatever is ranked 6th, is 5th, or, but we're right up there with Georgia and Florida State and all that.
Stop the count.
Guys, I mean, Curtis, you mentioned that they're 30th in 2025 right now, I believe. And I think in 2024, they finish up 27, 28. I remember when the 2024 class got off to the start where they were like the number 3 class in the country, and everybody was freaking out for a second. Yarborough's a 4-star. So like, obviously a guy like that's going to move the needle. I believe Arkansas has 3 or 4 other like high 3-star guys in the 2026 class. So like a good start to the class, but it's not going to equate to a top 10 class. So if you are at home thinking like, oh yeah, this is a thing that's going to continue to happen, other schools will get their commits and things will happen. It's a good start for the recruiting class, but I just do not want people citing that top 10 ranking for too long, because it probably won't last for too long. And just because it's just not, the math just is not going to math. They're not going to, you're not going to have a top 10 class with 3-4 stars.
And I wonder where this 2025 class winds up. So it's 28th right now overall. And they've got the Tavion Wallace kid, who's a top 40 prospect in the entire country. But just going down the list after that, it's all 3-star, 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 but they've got 21 hard commits. And so we know how the numbers play out right away. So Arkansas probably has quite a few more commits than maybe those other SEC schools that are going to start racking up the 5 stars and moving on up there. So
what happened? So what happens first? Arkansas football gets a top 15 recruiting class, or Arkansas basketball has a recruiting class that's outside the top 25. which happens first?
Arkansas basketball will never have, under John Calipari, a recruiting class outside the top 25.
Unless they just mail like 1 year where he was just like, look, I'm bringing in 7 transfers and I'm only recruiting 1 high school. Or like maybe if it was like a weird thing, it would be a decision where he was just like, I'm only bringing in 1 high school kid. F it. Because we saw Must do that a couple of years ago.
Was it Chance Moore? Was that the one player from high school?
Yeah. I will say the conspiracy theory of commit to Arkansas and dropping your rankings is alive and well, even with Calipari here. I saw On3 updated their rankings for the 2025 class. And Darius Acuff, who's just widely been regarded as the top guard in that class, they dropped his 5-star status and dropped him to 20th in the class. And it's hilarious. We're talking about a dude who averaged 20 some odd points per game in the freaking Nike UIBL and was drawing reviews at Peach Jam. And let's just go ahead and drop him. Spots. And
I don't understand anything about recruiting, but that is one thing I'll never understand is just like what happened in those days that you're just like, this guy, like, did he just not fill out a form right? Like, what happened in that little stretch?
Weird. And he had a little bit of a stretch there towards the end of the grassroots season where he didn't play, but I mean, man, what are we doing, man? Come on.
Just go from there. Yeah. It's so absurd. So, all right, we'll get into some more nonsensical stuff and, talk about the Olympics because I want to go on a little bit of a rant on the Olympics, but it's all brought to you by our friends over at Hopper Termite and Pest Control. We know that it's this time of year, folks, where you're always going to have dealings with pests, and that includes like spiders and wasps and flies and scorpions and all the stuff that you don't want in your bed and you don't want them anywhere around your house or your business. Well, luckily for you, Hopper has the ultimate formula to make sure that they get rid of all the pests in your house or in your business. And they have a eradication that will not only last for a long time, but also last even through the rain. So it doesn't just wash away with the rain. It stays up there too. And because of Inside Arkansas, you're listening to us and watching us, and because they really just wanted to make the promo code easy, they decided to make it my last name. So if you go over to and call up Hopper at 479-750-4070, use promo code NEIGHBORS, NABORS. I'm sure you're all going to grimace when you have to say it. You get $50 off your very first treatment. It's a great deal, and they're offering that throughout the summer. So check them out today. You can go to their website at callhopper.com or call them up at 479-750-4070 using promo code NEIGHBORS for $50 off your first treatment. Okay, we'll do some of these stuff and maybe get into some chats. We'll see if anybody's like behaving themselves and actually asking anything legitimate. Okay, the Olympics, I haven't watched, and I feel like this is what I wanted to bring up, guys. I feel like I used to care about the Olympics. I used to watch the Olympics. And every 4 years comes by, I get less and less interested. Why is that? Is it me? Is it in general? Is there just not enough storylines? Like, I'm asking you guys in my therapy session, like, why do I not care about the Olympics anymore when I used to?
Because you hate America. That's
why.
I
just think you might not be as American as you portray yourself.
Yeah, I guess.
Like it's,
the chubby shorts that you wear, the American flag chubby shorts, just don't. That's the extent of your patriotism, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man.
Only in my pants do I really scream America is what it's about. So I mean, listen, I want America to succeed. I want them to win all the events. I want them to have all the medals. But as far as just me like sitting down and watching it,
yeah,
I don't know. It just does nothing for me. Maybe it's just me. It could be just me, and I'm the weirdo.
It's not just you. And I think the main thing, John, is that there's a lot of people who are of the belief of like, if you're not going to tune into the whole thing, which if you're going to tune into the whole Olympics, you literally, it's sitting at your TV every single day. I mean, literally 3 a.m. in the morning. And so I think there's a lot of people who it's like enough happens to where they're like, okay, I missed the first part. So it's like, it's too late for me to catch up now. And there's just too much going on. Like there's a lot going on this time of year with fall camp and stuff. And so maybe that's what it is. Cause I haven't watched a ton. I've kind of kept up with it through social media and a few other things, and I've watched a few races and stuff here and there. But yeah, I don't know. I think you're not alone though, John. I don't think you're alone.
Yeah, and it's a matter of taste, like to each their own. I like watching the swimming. The races is exciting. The sprints, I like that. Am I going to sit there and watch them run the marathon or sit there while they race a bike for 70 miles or whatever? No, not necessarily. But yeah, the volleyball's been cool. Shout out to what's his name, Buttinger,
Chase
NBA guy. Yeah, they got put out. So, but they did pretty well there. But yeah, I mean, USA basketball, I'm excited. They play at, I think, 3:30 this afternoon. I'm going to check that out.
Hey, why do our 3-on-3 teams stink?
I was going to bring that up.
Because Jimmer Fredette was their best player.
Yeah, and like Haley Van Lith, who, like, no disrespect, but it's like you got just like literal, like just random folks to do it.
Yeah.
Just people that are famous on the internet.
Well, what happened to the girls is Cameron Brink got hurt.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
Yeah,
having to replace her is tough.
But okay, so if Cameron Brink can play in it, that means WNBA players could hypothetically play?
I guess.
So why wouldn't they just send like 3 of the best players? Like, I don't know. I guess
I was thinking that maybe they do the because doesn't Ice Cube still have the 3-on-3 stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Just get like Joe Johnson and those guys out there to play that. Like that's what they do is 3-on-3. Like why not get them? I don't know.
Joe Johnson and Jimmer, that would have been a duo.
That would have been quite the duo.
Playing in the 3-on-3 league. That guy Isaiah Austin, who like had a weird illness that he like can't play basketball. He's a big man from Baylor a few years back, but he's playing in the 3-on-3 league. And crushing because he's like an NBA level player, but he has this weird like disorder with his eye where he like can't play in the NBA. I thought that was cool. Curtis, did you watch the track and field stuff?
Yeah, a decent amount of it.
I was tapped in on the finals just because I was seeing everybody kind of hoping to celebrate the downfall of Noah Lyles. I thought that was awesome.
That was crazy. Yeah, and it was what made that even better was that the broadcast team thought the Jamaican dude won because of that lean at the very end. But when you win by 5 1/1000ths of a second, that is insane. And then what the difference in being the gold medalist and not getting a medal at all was like 100th of a second or so. I mean, it's just that's crazy, man.
Yeah. The only thing I remember like from the Olympics is when I really paid attention the most was when it was like Usain Bolt and like what he was doing, and also of course Michael Phelps. That was really the peak because I always will remember the call. I forgot. I think it was like the 4x whatever in the swimming when they like came back and beat the French because the French were talking trash. And, whatever that broadcaster just started screaming at the top of his lungs, "Here comes Lazak!" Because he was like swimming. And that was like the times I remember the Olympics the most. So
2:30, by the way, the basketball is 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Team USA Brazil basketball.
Are they today?
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be cool.
And that's for the gold.
Wait, what is today?
Monday.
Today is Monday, the 5th.
Gosh, the days are running.
Dude, you're talking to the guy that put the wrong date up on the graphic.
They play Tuesday. They play Tuesday.
Okay.
Tuesday. Okay. So tomorrow it'll be that
quarterfinals, and then it's 3 games in 5 days to win the gold.
Okay.
Wow. Did y'all see the whole controversy with the gymnastics? Obviously, the gymnastics, it went well for USA Gymnastics and Simone Biles in particular, but there was like some former Olympian who was like running her mouth a little bit, saying like, "Oh, outside of Simone Biles, this team, they're just not at the same level. They're lazy." She called them like something. She used a bunch of terms. And so then when they won the team, Simone Biles put on her Instagram like, "Oh, just a bunch of lazy, uncompetitive Olympian gold medalists or whatever." Which I thought was really awesome.
Yeah, no, I did see that. Hey, I didn't. Speaking of like Andrew, like, was there any controversy about the women's boxing or something? Like, was there some sort of problem there?
There was a controversy. I'd say that's putting it lightly. So look, from what I can tell, there shouldn't be a controversy. Like, I think it was a pretty
correct.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that it was a situation that got blown out of proportion because of the internet and stupid people. But I don't know. I think it turned out to just be a thing where a woman that, there's a lot of like no disrespect, there's a lot of female athletes in the Olympics who like just are big people who are just, it is what it is. But from what I can tell, from everyone like smart that I've read and listened to seems to think that like it's a biological woman, and that there was something a few years back where she got kicked out of some tournament because she tested too high for something, but it was like a fraudulent thing, and like the people who did that have like are no longer in control of things, and so it's just one of those internet stories where people kind of ran with it a little bit.
That
Italian girl got the hell beat out of her.
I honestly just set you up to that so you wouldn't answer, but you didn't have to answer. But you gave an answer, so I'll give you that. I'll give you
I thought
that.
you were genuinely inquiring. I was like, how did he not know?
No, I was not even 100% knew it. I just was like, oh, I'm going to bring up something controversial and see if he takes the bait. And you were just like, well, let me tell you about this thing and what was going on. Like,
I did want to say that because I think there were a lot of people who have been going crazy on the internet, like angry about a thing that's not a real thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's pretty much the internet all these days, anyways.
Oh,
Is there anything else you guys want to bring up? Anything you had set that you wanted to do as we wrap it up here?
I had something like 2 minutes ago. Oh, Katie Ledecky. We didn't say her name, but like gotta honor her. She had a great run.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
What other Olympians like had a big, huge thing in the Olympics?
Simone Biles went crazy again, but she did fall off the beam in her last deal. So that was tough.
Mm-hmm.
So is she like, so what does that mean? I guess like speak to me.
It means she fell off the balance beam during her routine and she finished 5th instead of winning. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
But
yeah, what a joke. Yeah. Was it last Olympics that she didn't participate? Like at the very end?
Was that 2020?
Or was that
the beginning and then she came back?
Okay. Yeah. Well, the Olympics didn't happen in 2020. So they
did it in 2021.
That's right. Okay. Now, yeah, that's right. I was like, I remember that was all there too. So,
did the stock market crash? I was thinking, did that happen? Are we in a recession now or?
I think so.
That's tough, man.
Contrary to what people try to say, I think that's what the case is. So,
okay. Yeah, I had to check in on that. But
yeah, I mean that's the thing is like,
be smart with your money, people.
Yeah, anytime like the stock market crashes or whatever, I'm like, man, it is a serious thing, but it also like because of a stock market crash, it makes me always think like we're going to hell in a handbasket. Like we are crumbling.
That sounds like such a cool term, the stock market crashing.
Yeah,
I've never been in a position where I've had it affect me, so maybe it wouldn't be that cool. But that sounds like a doomsday like big deal.
I didn't know what else to do, so I just went to a news site here, and the headline is "Global Stock Markets Are Plunging." So I don't know.
So should we wait like a week and then we should start investing stuff? Because I mean,
I don't know.
You kind of want to buy the dip, right?
I'm open for advice there.
Let us know, chat. I'm sure y'all have got some great insight.
Yeah. All of a sudden, everyone's like Jordan Belfort in the chat. Like, there's like, oh, well, here's what you need to do. Like, just throwing it at us immediately. So,
by the way, we definitely should have mentioned Kaylen Brown, the Razorback who did the I forget the term. Was it a relay? I don't know what event it was, but there was a Razorback who helped get a silver medal for that.
Yeah,
it was a big deal. Kaylen Brown.
Because was it the mixed relay?
That was like last week. Yes.
Yeah. See, those are the things where I'll just see like, oh yeah, Arkansas connections there too.
There you go. So, I remember when Tyson Gay used to crush it at the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
We used to always be like, whoop it.
I remember Fayetteville native Wallace Spearman, man. He finished 3rd, but stepped on the line and got disqualified on the Olympics. And I remember like right when that happened, they stuck a microphone in his face, like, what are your thoughts? And he's just like crushed beyond belief because he had like this much of a foot on the line. It's just like, oh yeah, that was pretty terrible. So, all right, guys, does that wrap it up for the first edition of Inside Arkansas Live? I believe so. Hey,
if we didn't get it all out, we'll just say it tomorrow because we'll be right back here.
Hey, speaking of crashing, the internet didn't crash and it kept going. So I feel like that's literally 80% of the battle right there. Is that our internet didn't crash, our cameras were working. All that's good. But I'll leave you here on one final thing. I want to ask you guys a dad joke, or tell you guys a good dad joke if you're ready for this. What do you call children that are born in a whorehouse?
I don't know.
Brothel sprouts.
Oh wow, I like that. That.
Thank you. That's it. That's all I wanted to end it on. I heard that this morning, and I was like, I'm just going to say that in some form or fashion on the show. Might as well do it at the end. But
there we go.
Great way to end it. Appreciate everybody listening in and watching into the Inside Arkansas Live. Going to be live every day at noon, and we'll be providing all the updates with Razorback Sports, as well as some nonsense that we'll get into as well. So for Curtis Wilkerson and Andrew Ellis, I am John Neighbors. Same sports show, same sports channel. Tomorrow, be sure to check out InsideArkansas.com For all the great updated content, subscribe to the YouTube page of Inside Arkansas. We're going to keep it going from there. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and night, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.